Hi folks, I'm Doug at Dizzy Lizzie's, and this is a Hayter 479 series lawnmower. It's coming because the blade brake is not working. What's a blade brake? It's a lever that when it's engaged makes your blades spin, otherwise they will stay stationary. The advantages of that is you don't have to start and stop the machine when you're going from one section over a path and don't want the blades to hit anything. So you just disengage the blades stop, you then go over the path, or you move it around somewhere which isn't grass, and when you get onto some area where you need to cut the grass, you engage the blade and then you off go with cuts. Now, I've changed a few of these in the past, but there is a problem that I've noticed. This is the third one that's come in. Now, this is the blade brake cable, and these two are blade brake cables as well, which I've replaced, and they all have one thing in common with this one. That spring there has broken. Now, people will say, yeah, well, if springs get pulled, they wear on the edge, that makes them a bit thinner, and then eventually you'll engage the blade brake or whatever part of the machine and it will snap off. The thing about it is, though, it's not on the tip. There, they broke. They've both broken at exactly the same place. Same as this one. So there's obviously a problem with manufacturing. I do have another one here which is seized up, and when you engage the blade brake it doesn't fully disengage it, so the blade's spinning around. You can lubricate them up, but otherwise it's a new cable. And these aren't cheap. It is. The part number for it is 1342297, but make sure it's the correct one for your model. But anyway, let's change the cable. Now, how can you tell the blade brake cable's broken? Well, what happens is, this is the cable that goes down to it, and it's thicker than a drive cable. You can see the comparison of the two. You can see the thickness and difference between the two of them. And what happens is when you engage the blade brake by putting this lever through here and then pulling that mechanism up, the cable gets pulled. But it should also return, and it's not. Also, your blades won't spin around. So, first thing I've done is I took the cover off the top of here and cleared all the muck out. And you can see that's the cable there. Now I've got to change. And yeah, you could do it from this side, but to be honest with you, it's a lot easier from the underneath. So let's get it on its back. I forgot to mention, first thing you've got to do is undo this cable clamp here. That's an 11mm or 7/16 to release the end of the cable. Then you release it from these clips here, and that allows it to run freely and be replaced. So now let's get it on its back. Now, underneath here you can see the cable, and this is what I'll be removing from here. Now, it's held on by just a simple push through connection. And what you do is pliers either side, give it a little twiggle, wiggle, and hey presto, out comes the cable. You just pull it out, and that's it removed. And you can see that this has broken in the same spot. So, refitting the new cable. First of all, unwind it. Right, let's wind out a bit. First, unwind the cable. I wouldn't bother lubricating these, because if you lubricate them, dust gets inside and that's what caused the other one to seize up. Now, I'll feed this through the loop that's underneath the deck and then down there. And that way gives me a chance to run it the way I want to. So now I've got the cable here. And it is literally grab hold of that, the housing, and feed the cable through the slot. And that's it in location. This goes on to the lever at the back here. And you can see where it fits from that. And this is how the cable is supposed to be fitted, and that's where the spring locates. If I zoom out, the idea is that when you pull the cable, it pulls the lever this way, allowing the blade brake to rotate and tensions up the drive belt, which then engages the blade. Next thing I do is put all the covers back on, and they are literally 1 8mm bolt, 1 8mm bolt, 1 8mm bolt, 1 8mm bolt and 1 8mm bolt. Simple as that. Now I've replaced the undercover and the disc and the blade, you can see that there's a bit of effort to turn the engine over. That is, the blade brake is working. So now let's put it so it's in the correct position, normal position, and continue refitting the cable at the top. Now, I've run the cable through this piece of plastic. It holds these cables in line, and next thing I've got to do is put it through one of these little plastic clips. Now, someone had a great idea of putting them on there, and when you take the cables off, quite often you break them off if you're not careful. So I'll just reposition the camera and I'll show you how I do these. Now, when repositioning the cables through one of these here, use a small flat blade screwdriver, and I literally just gently pull that out. You don't want to pull it too much, and as soon as there's space for that cable to go underneath it, you put the cable underneath it and put it down. Any too much further this way and it will break. Now, on this gold coloured spring here, it fits into this lever. And it's easy because you haven't attached it up for this connection here, that cable just goes through there like that. Again, don't lubricate it because muck will get on it and cause trouble. Right, next thing I do, the block here. You just undo it with your fingers, because what's the point of tightening it back up again? Pull the block out and feed the cable into it. There's only one place it can fit. Then turn over the block, put the nylock nut on, and then just tighten it up. This is a 7/16. Sometimes you can hold the bolt at the back, sometimes you have to use a spanner. Next thing I do is check to see if it engages. So They've got a lever on the side, and then you pull the lever back, the main big lever, and that's now the tension. So next thing I've got to do, put the top cover on it and see if the blade brake works properly. So right, let's start it up, and when I engage the blade brake, I push that lever in there and then this big lever back, and it pulls the cable. But you'll be able to hear a difference in the engine and the noise from the blade going round. So let's start it up. Right, now to finish it off by putting some zip ties on there and giving it a bit of a clean up. Now, I've put a zip tie around here, a zip tie around here, but I've also put a zip tie through this mechanism here. I did have longer 3.5mm wide zip ties, but unfortunately I've run out of them. So I've just put two smaller zip ties together and I've fed them through the hole the spring goes through. Well, why have you done that? All that mechanism here is held on with this button, and I've had a few of these come in where the buttons come off, and yes, they have lost this whole massive chunk of metal, and they're not too cheap to replace. So in the event of that popping off, that holds this chunk of metal in possession. Also, if you find your blade brake is engaged but seems to drag and and get held up, so it's not spinning properly, this is the adjustment for the cable. So if it's not gripping it properly, so the blade gets held up with thicker grass, you just undo these two bolts here, or this other, and you expand it outwards. So you get enough good drive on the belt, because belts and cables do wear, and it allows you, instead of having to replace everything, just adjust it up so the blade doesn't get held back when it hits thick grass. So there you are, folks. If you have a blade brake that breaks, that's how you change them over on these machines, the 479 and the 579. But always make sure you get the correct cable, because maybe the 579, as it's a wider machine, needs a slightly longer cable. So there you are, folks. I hope that was helpful, and if it was, I'd like you to hit the like button, and if you liked it even better, I'd like you to hit the subscribe button. It doesn't cost anything, and it is much beneficial to me. Much appreciated. So until next video, take care and see you then. Bye.